The price of family, how I was used, abandoned, and finally freed. I never thought I'd be sitting here, in the dead of night, staring at my bank statements and wondering how I let things get this far. But here I am. It started so small, a few small requests here and there. A car repair, an overdue bill, maybe a last-minute rent payment. It's just this one time, Ryan, I promise, Chloe would say, always with that pleading tone, as though I could never say no. And I didn't. I couldn't. Not when she said she was struggling. Not when my mom, Jennifer, called to remind me of how stressed Chloe was, how she needed me. You're doing so well, Ryan, she'd say. Your sister really needs you right now. So I sent the money. Sometimes it was just a couple $100. Other times it was more. But it never felt like enough. It always came with another request, another reason. Before I knew it, I was sending them a fixed amount every month, a monthly support system they insisted would keep us all connected despite the distance. But it wasn't about connection. It was about control. And when I stopped sending the money, that's when everything changed. The first time I missed a payment, I thought nothing of it. Life gets busy. People understand, right? But no. The second I stopped, everything I thought I knew about my family came crashing down. Chloe didn't call to ask if everything was okay. She didn't offer sympathy or wonder what was wrong. She called to tell me I was a disappointment, that I was selfish, that I was tearing the family apart. And then the words that shattered everything, we don't need you anymore, Ryan. Just like that. One moment I was the son they relied on, the brother they counted on. The next I was nothing. The truth hit me harder than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about family. It was about money. And once I stopped handing it over, I was nothing more than a stranger. So, what now? What do you do when you realize that your family only cares about you because of what you can provide? What do you do when your love, your loyalty, your sacrifices, all of it turns out to be nothing more than a transaction? I'll tell you what I did. I started questioning everything. And that was just the beginning. When I first moved to the city, I thought it was a fresh start. A chance to build my career, meet new people, and live a life free from the small-town pressures I had always known. But then Chloe called. Ryan, I really need your help this time. It started with the usual things. A few $100 for a car repair, an emergency medical bill that came out of nowhere. And like any good brother, I helped. After all, family comes first, right? It wasn't a big deal to me at the time. But then it didn't stop. Chloe's calls kept coming. Hey, my rent's late this month, can you help out? Ryan, I'm struggling to cover some medical expenses. Could you send a little something? It was always something new, something urgent. And every time I agreed. After all, how could I say no? She was my sister, and my mom, Jennifer, would always follow up with her own set of concerns. Chloe's really stressed, Ryan, she would say. She's been working so hard and she's just falling behind. I know it's tough, but you're doing so well. You're the only one who can help. And of course, I felt the weight of it all. I wanted to help. I wanted to be the good brother, the son who stepped in when his family needed him. But slowly, that sense of duty started to feel like an obligation. Every time I sent money, it wasn't just a simple act of kindness. It became expected. There were no thank yous, no appreciation, just the next request waiting around the corner. I started feeling the tension build. I couldn't shake the thought that something was off. And then one night, it happened again. Chloe called, but this time it was different. There was a sense of urgency in her voice, the kind that made my heart race. Ryan, I really need you to send more this month. Things are getting really tight. You're doing well, right? You can help me, can't you? My stomach dropped. The first crack in the facade was the guilt. The subtle, persistent guilt. Chloe wasn't just asking anymore, she was reminding me of my duty to help. She didn't say it outright, but I could hear it in her tone. And Mom? She had her own ways of twisting things. Ryan, you know how much Chloe depends on you, Jennifer would say. She's just trying to keep everything together. You don't want to let her down, do you? It was hard to ignore the rising pressure. My kindness, which I once gave freely, now felt like a chain around my neck. I wasn't helping because I wanted to. I was helping because it was expected. And that's when it hit me, the first sign that something was terribly wrong. My family, my own flesh and blood, was starting to see me as a resource, not as a person. The emotional manipulation was subtle at first, but it was there, and it was powerful. Before I share what happened next, the moment that made me realize the full extent of my family's control, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever felt the pressure of family expectations, hit that like button because this story is just getting started. Chloe called again, but this time she had a plan. Ryan, I've been thinking about it, she said, her voice unusually calm. It would be easier if we just set up a fixed monthly payment. That way, you don't have to deal with all these emergencies every time. We can just count on you every month and it'll help us plan better. At first, it seemed reasonable. A set amount each month, no more scrambling for money every few weeks, no more unexpected crises. So, I agreed. It was easier. I could budget around it and I told myself it would be a temporary solution. Chloe needed help and I was more than capable of providing it. We settled on $800 a month. I thought that was fair. But as time passed, the bills didn't stop coming. A few months in, Chloe called again, this time with a more urgent tone. Ryan, you know things are getting more expensive. You don't want me to fall behind, right? The rent's been going up and medical bills are piling up. Can you make it $1,200 a month instead? It's just for a little while until things get better. I hesitated for a moment. $1,200? That was a significant increase. But I gave in. What could I say? Chloe had a way of making it seem like the most important thing in the world. She had no choice, she said. And of course, Mom Jennifer was right there behind her. You know, Ryan, it's just the way things are now, Jennifer would say, her voice soft but firm. The costs are rising everywhere. Chloe's doing her best, but it's a lot to manage alone. You're doing well and your family needs you. This is just what family does. We take care of each other. And just like that, the pressure to give more felt like a weight I couldn't escape. I began to resent the constant flow of requests, but there was always a reason, always a justification. Every time I thought about saying no, a flood of guilt overwhelmed me. If I didn't help, what kind of person would I be? It was the same story every time. Another emergency. Another rise in expenses. Each month, I found myself sending the money, never feeling like I had the choice to stop. I kept telling myself it was just temporary, that things would get better. But they never did. I thought I could manage. But the constant need for more, the steady increase in the monthly support began to wear me down. Every time I questioned the amount or hesitated, the same excuse would surface. You're the only one who can help, Ryan. What kind of brother would you be if you turned your back now? The line between helping out of love and being expected to provide financial support became thinner and thinner. Every time I said yes, it felt less like an act of generosity and more like an obligation. And the worst part? I couldn't see a way out. The weight of it all started to sink in. Family was no longer about love or connection. It was about money. And I was stuck in the middle of it, a puppet in a scheme that I had unknowingly walked into. Before I go any further into what happened next and how I finally realized just how deep the manipulation ran, I want to take a moment to hear from you, my amazing viewers. Have you ever found yourself trapped by expectations or felt like you were being used? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've ever had to stand up against something that just wasn't right, don't forget to hit that like button. It's a reminder that we don't have to stay stuck in situations that don't serve us. The story's about to get even more intense. The breaking point came suddenly. 1 month, the numbers just didn't add up. Life had thrown a few unexpected curveballs my way and I found myself struggling to make ends meet. I missed one payment, just one. I thought maybe they'll understand. It's just this once. But the response was anything but understanding. Chloe called and the venom in her voice was unmistakable. You've abandoned us, Ryan, she said, the words sharp, cutting through the silence of my apartment. We thought you cared. We thought family meant something to you. But now you're just like everyone else, selfish. I was stunned. Abandoned? Selfish? I had been sending money every month without fail, always justifying it to myself as helping out my sister. But now, in the blink of an eye, I was the villain. The words stung, but what hurt the most was the sudden realization that I was no longer just a family member. I was a provider, a source of cash, nothing more. And then the real kicker, Chloe's social media. I had been avoiding it for a while, but curiosity got the better of me. I logged in, scrolling through her posts when I saw them. Photos from a lavish vacation, designer clothes, expensive meals, and those perfectly staged shots of Chloe smiling beside a luxury car. I froze. My hands felt cold as I stared at the pictures. How could she afford all this? The same Chloe who claimed she could barely cover rent, the one who sent me desperate calls about unpaid bills, was living a life of luxury. It was all right there, right in front of me. The money I'd sent for emergencies wasn't going toward any of those needs. It was fueling a lifestyle she didn't need and couldn't afford. The realization hit like a slap to the face. The truth I had refused to see for so long suddenly came rushing in. This wasn't about need. This wasn't about family. It was about control. They had me right where they wanted me, pulling the strings with guilt and manipulation, knowing I would keep giving, knowing I couldn't say no. My frustration turned to anger, and for the first time I saw it clearly what they had been doing to me. Every request, every demand was a calculated move to keep me trapped in their financial web. And I had played along, too blind to see the manipulation for what it was. But now the game had changed. I wasn't just a contributor anymore. I was a pawn being used for my money. And I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal or the fact that I had allowed it to go on for so long. I couldn't keep playing this game. Manipulation, this emotional blackmail, had been passed down through generations. It started with my grandmother, who had used similar tactics to control my mom, Jennifer, and now my sister, Chloe. They had learned the game from the best, and I had been nothing more than a pawn in their scheme for as long as I could remember. I wasn't the first to be exploited. My cousin Mason had been there 2 years ago, and I finally reached out to him for advice. He had been through the same thing, the same guilt, the same relentless pressure to provide. Ryan, he said, his voice calm but full of understanding, they've been doing this for as long as I can remember. They manipulate, they guilt you into giving, and when you stop, they cut you off. It's their pattern. They've done it to all of us. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. This was never about family. It was about control. And I had been giving it to them willingly without even realizing the cost to my own well-being. I knew what I had to do next. I made the decision to stop sending money altogether. I set firm boundaries, something I should have done years ago. I told Chloe and Jennifer that I would no longer be providing financial support. No more guilt trips, no more promises that everything would be better. It was over. But the fallout was brutal. They didn't just stop calling, they completely cut me off. The messages became accusations, and I could hear the venom in their words. Chloe called me a selfish, ungrateful son. Jennifer, my own mother, joined in, accusing me of tearing the family apart. The betrayal I felt was overwhelming, but I couldn't back down. I had made my choice, and I knew it was the right one. Then came the attempt to smear my name. They spread lies, telling people that I had abandoned them, that I had turned my back on my family when they needed me the most. They painted me as the villain in their carefully crafted narrative. But it didn't matter anymore. I had exposed the truth to myself, and that was enough. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't painless. I lost my family in a way I never thought possible. But I also gained something incredibly valuable, a sense of freedom. The weight of guilt, the constant pressure to provide, all of it was lifted from my shoulders. I was no longer trapped in a cycle of manipulation. I realized that true love cannot be bought. It doesn't come with conditions or hidden motives. Love is supposed to be freely given without expectations or strings attached. And for the first time in my life, I felt free to live my own life without the suffocating need to constantly prove my worth through financial support. It wasn't just about breaking free from their grip, it was about breaking free from the idea that love and family are synonymous with sacrifice and obligation. I had grown. I had learned that my worth wasn't tied to what I could provide, but to who I was. Now, I feel lighter, more at peace. I'm moving forward with my life, free from the toxic dynamics that held me captive for so long. The truth isn't always easy to face, but it's always worth it. And with that truth comes the empowerment to live life on my own terms. As hard as it was to sever those ties, I know it was the right thing. And for the first time in years, I can breathe easy.